hurry, define this place or we'll be late.
Make a left on Astrology Avenue. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant right. It should be right here at 444 Spirit Way. Oh, turn!
It looks like Renee. Yay, we're on time.
The James and Kelly Show.
Great, let's start the show.
Hi, everybody. I'm like, hey, James, how are you? Hi, everybody. I am spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kelly White. And you may say that I am alone tonight. But am I really alone tonight? Not really. We're never alone. I say that all the time. But James is with Lynn Probert tonight, and he's doing his teaching of this class all week. So he asked me to do the show, and we have an amazing guest, and of course, a huge astrology report you won't want to miss. And we have a great guest. You guys are going to love this guest. But let me say hi to everybody because let's see here. We go, hi, Sarah Stone. Hi, Mariel. They're all saying hi, Renee. That's our special guest. You're going to love him. You guys, the man behind the curtain, you guys are going to love. Just champed on. And yeah, finally meeting Renee, right? It's going to be amazing. Hi, Laura. Hi, Allison. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, everybody. Deanne and Anne and Denise, Jennifer. Hi, Lori Counts. Hi, Lori. I miss you, honey. Hi, Gret. Hi, Nicole. So hi, Christy. Oh, my gosh. Hi. Oh, Alicia from West Hollywood. Oh, I was so sad today to hear about Leslie Jordan. And if you don't know who Leslie Jordan was, you should look him up. He made my 2020. He was the most fun, wonderful. He did the best YouTubes. He was an amazing guy, great actor, just loved this guy. And sadly, he died, I believe it was in West Hollywood, actually, in a car accident. They think he had a medical emergency and crashed into a building. It was very sad because I just loved this guy. So anyway, so that's interesting that you're from West Hollywood. Hi, Susie Burrows. Hi, everybody. Well, I thought what I'd do now is I'm going to talk about the astrology because we have an amazing astrological report. Seriously, serious time here. And then I'm going to bring on our special guest, Renee, which you guys will learn so much. He's so incredible, and he's such an amazing, not just producer, that's just like one aspect of his life. It's really, really interesting. Hi, Charlene. How are you? Hi, Christy Henley. Christy Henley, I'm actually going to quote you on my astrology report, so you might want to listen. So let's get into the astrology, everybody, because you might be asking yourself, what the is going on here? This is some astrology that we have going. Now, you may remember, James and I, every year we do predictions. And we do our predictions in the end of December, like maybe mid-December. And we'll do that again this year. But what I was saying last year during this is that, and I've said this all along, that the second half of this year is going to be the most challenging because of all of these very big aspects. So if I start with I'm going to talk about 5 major aspects, okay, that are going to be life-changing for many people and certainly for the world. So I'm going to talk about that now. And I did start off last week with talking about this one aspect. And the first aspect I want to go back to was on August 1st. And that was when Mars, Rahu, and Uranus, they all conjunct at 24 degrees of Aries, and they were squaring Saturn. And that's a huge life-changing event. And Christy Henley, so I love this question. She said, how long does this last? Like when there's a big astrological event. And in this case, if I just look at the August 1st event, it's a period of time. It may not happen. The event itself anything may not happen on the days that I'm going to talk about. However, they make lasting change for years. And these aspects that I'm going to talk about, they define a time period. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen on the exact day, but you can know this. It will change destiny. It puts us all on a new road. It's going to be an intense period of time. What I'm looking at is the next 2 weeks, starting today, and then the next several months, and the next few years. So it really does define a time period. And as I always say, we wanted to be here during this time because it really helps our soul grow so much. It's really all about growth of the soul. So today is October 24th, 2022. And today, Saturn squares Uranus directly. So imagine this. You have two titans that are so opposite of each other. Saturn represents the old, the government, the old systems. Karma does represent karma, old things. And Uranus is all about new age. This is the way we think. It's upsetting. It changes the world. And these two are going at each other at that degree that I talked about on August 1st at 24 degrees. Saturn is stationing direct today. So what does that mean? It's been retrograde for months, and now it is stationing, which means it kind of stops first, and then it turns direct. It goes direct. It goes forward directly. And when this happens, the last time, well, this is the fourth and final square between these two powerhouses. And this is where this leads to like historical change. So the last time this conjunction happened like this was in 1988. And that led to the crumbling down of the Berlin Wall and the fall of the Soviet Union. So you can see that this is a major aspect here. So now, and it also means it will change people's lives as well, because it brings great transformation. And Saturn in Capricorn, again, I'm using Vedic astrology here. Saturn in Capricorn going direct brings karmic implications along with destiny. Uranus retrograde in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, is all about powerful warrior energy. So this time period could bring sudden disruption, and it's rebellion, it's freedom. It also, in your personal life, if you have been feeling anger, but you've kept it inside, it might explode out. You know, this is the kind of thing that brings up rebellion in a lot of people. Especially if they have felt that they have, not spoken up, or they felt that they didn't have a voice. Well, this time is probably going to get people speaking up a lot. And with Uranus, it's really interesting because Uranus also reflects genius, and it has all this really creative aspect to it. And it means to express yourself authentically. And that's what I think is going to make this a really interesting opportunity, if we look at it that way, to express yourself. So these are very, very deep times. And this brings a time of radical change and disruption. So this is just today. The event is happening today, but it touches on for, I'm going to say, probably at least several months to a year to a few years, because we will remember this period of time. So because it brings up a lot of upheaval. Okay, so there were five that I'm going to talk about. The first one was the August 1st one. This one was August 24th today. The third one is tomorrow. And imagine this close together. So the third one is the partial solar eclipse tomorrow, October 25th. This is going to be a big one because it will trigger personal and global events. So I want you to look back at your life 18 and a half years ago. Where were you? What were you doing? And that would be about mid-1984, around that period of time. What were you doing? Now, I can tell you personally, it's when I met my husband, actually. That's exactly when we met. So if you look at your life, what was your life like? How has it changed? Because that might give you some indication of where we're going right now, or it will give you an indication that there will be change right now in your life. And so this solar eclipse tomorrow is it's a partial solar eclipse, and this one will be seen throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa. It will not be seen in the United States. Okay, but let me tell you about this. And again, I'm talking about Vedic astrology. So this new moon solar eclipse is in Libra. Now in Western astrology, they say it's in Scorpio, but I'm a Vedic astrologer, so I'm saying it's in Libra because Vedic astrology is where the stars actually move. And so it's more accurate. So that's why I do Vedic astrology. And it conjuncts Venus, which means it's next to Venus at the same degree. It's a very powerful time. And this solar eclipse is aligned with K2, or the South Node. But in Vedic astrology, we call the South Node K2. And K2 is referred to as the Terminator because it brings things to a completion. And K2 is also aligned with karma. And if you think about it, karma is neither positive nor negative. It's about balance. And according to Gary Zukav, who wrote Seed of the Soul, and if you haven't read it, it's a fabulous book. It's an important part of the soul's healing, actually, involves balancing your karma. So this experience that we're going to share with this solar eclipse will be about our karma. It will be looking back at things like, for instance, in my case, I already have felt this energy coming for a long time. And I really feel, as a lot of you knew, I had multiple surgeries. And I really feel it was a real karmic situation for me. So, but because this eclipse is in Libra, which Libra is about finding peace and balance and justice, but it conjuncts Venus, which is about relationships and finances. So this eclipse tomorrow deals with soul contracts in relationships and work. So let's say you can't stand your job anymore. Wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden, boom, something else happens and you decide to go have another job or leave the job that you're in and start something new. That would fit this time period. The other thing that's really going to be important are relationships. So this is a great time. It's such a potent energy for this, but it could help you actually heal old, difficult, lingering, broken hearts. That is something that could happen. The mantra that I've been saying for this period of time is everything is working out for my highest good. So I want everybody to remember that. Everything is working out for my highest good. Okay. And so this solar eclipse is a powerful time to go within. So what you want to do tomorrow, what they say about solar eclipses is, well, all eclipse, they always say eat lightly or don't eat at all, or eat lightly, rest, go in, meditate. They say for healers, it's not a good time to work. It's very interesting, right? Because they really want you to go in and do your mantras and pray and meditate. So this is tomorrow. Now, the fourth big experience that we have coming up is Mars is going retrograde on October 30th. That's this Sunday, okay? It lasts until January 12th of 2023. Now, it's not unusual for Mars to go retrograde. It does every 2 years. But what's unusual about this retrograde is that it's 5 days after a solar eclipse. That gives it more power. Mars doesn't need any more power. Let me just say, it's got plenty of power. And the other thing that makes this one a little unusual is that the retrograde itself will be in 2 signs. So it's going to begin in Gemini. So right on the 30th, it goes into Gemini. And then later on, a month from there, it changes into Taurus, which is a bit unusual, actually. But because it's going to be, this Mars retrograde is going to be in Gemini, it doesn't like Gemini. Because Mars likes to say what it thinks and go and do. And Gemini's like, wait a minute. I want to talk about this. And Mars is more about anger and war and rules and frustration. It can be a very frustrating time. So I want everybody to pay attention to how they speak to one another. Watch your driving. Please watch your driving. Because this is a powerful time. Now, when Mars is retrograde like this, it is all about wars. It's about weapons. It's about hostility. I mean, it's a lot. So you really want to watch all of this play out. It's going to be intense. The last time that Mars was retrograde in these signs, which is Gemini and Taurus, was in 2008. So there was a financial crisis then. And 1990 to 1991, there was a financial crisis then as well. Because when it goes into Taurus, it deals with finances. Right now, it's going to talk about communication. So you really want to watch the communication. Your computer could break down, the internet could crash, all of these things, because it's a very powerful aspect that comes up. And it's going to be intense. And the final thing I want to discuss is on November 8th, we have the companion, the lunar eclipse. Okay, so tomorrow is the solar eclipse. November 8th is the lunar eclipse. And I kind of want to say about the lunar eclipse is this, kind of like, all right, boys, I see your last 4 and I raise you like this many. This lunar eclipse, like, eclipses all the eclipses. It's very, very intense. It's in Aries, which is ruled by Mars at 22 degrees. It could cause a lot of problems because it's in conjunction with Uranus, which brings change and crises. So if it sounds like I'm like, well, holy hell, what is going on? It is a lot in the next few weeks that we're going to see. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to see. So I would say this is a great time to go inward, to meditate, to be in balance, to be kind to one another, to watch your driving, because I think that driving is, watch your health, because you don't want to go into a heart attack. You want to really, pay attention to everything. Okay. So I wanted to give everybody a big heads up for the astrology, because it's an intense time. And having said all of that, now even I have to take a break. Hold on a second. I'm not kidding you. This is a very, very big time. Oh, thank you, Kelly. You're the best. Thank you. I so appreciate it. And I really want to say thank you. Oh, thank you, Tracy. I want to say thank you to everybody that sent me prayers. And by the way, I've been reading everybody who's sent me privately messages about some of the surgeries that they've gone through and, all the different situations that they've had. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I really do. And thank you for sharing all of your stuff with me. I so appreciate it. Truly. And having said all of this, I am ready to welcome our guest. So let me just tell you about René. Our guest, René, is the man behind the curtain. He is so fascinating. He came to the United States from the Netherlands. He is a medical doctor. He's a podiatrist. And let me tell you, I've had to ask him a lot of questions. And he's helped a lot of people I know. And he has such an extensive background. I'm going to let him share it with you. But aside from working with us, he works with Deepak Chopra, and he's worked with him for 10 years. And you've got to hear his story because it's fascinating. And he just came back from producing, wait for it, the largest alien convention in the world. Go figure. So I'd like to welcome René. René, come on out, please. Hi, René.
Hi, Kelly. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Yay!
It's so nice to see all of you, and Patty and Connie and Mary and Nancy. I can finally say all your names. Normally, I see it behind the scenes, but yeah. And by the way, I didn't turn green. I didn't. So I'm still here. I'm not being abducted.
James and I were concerned, by the way.
Right. I know you were worried that I had to do the show.
We're like, no, we need to do it
or something.
It's true.
I'm still here. I learned a lot. It was fascinating.
What was it like?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, it was huge. It was like there were like 800-900 people here, and we just wrapped up, and it was here in Florida, in Orlando, and it was a great event. People were super nice, and and most of you will know the speakers, but they all came together for the first time in the world and talked about about extraterrestrial life and adoptees and how basically how everybody had their own experience with extraterrestrial life and what it looks like, and interdimensional beings and Pleiadians. And I can't say that because I'm not a specialist in this. I just heard the terminology. but all the different dimensions, right? They come from the 5th dimension to the 10th dimensions, and there is this whole universe, this whole, it was fascinating to learn about how they can come into our reality and then go back to their reality. They just travel interdimensionally. They have this technology that is fascinating, and there were people that were actually, I was impressed by how well they could explain their propulsion of the UFOs and how that exactly worked. I never had a clue how that worked. So it was fascinating. So it was really, really, really interesting. And there were some interesting characters too, I have to tell you.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But
wow. Did they ever talk about walking amongst us, or do they just mostly stay?
No, they apparently are widely among us. They can take on human form. You'll never know, but they're here. They're among us. Yeah, for sure. And they constantly visit, and a lot of people. I'm surprised now that I have a glimpse of how big this is. I could think up until now, everybody was kind of afraid to talk about it, because as soon as you start to talk about UFOs and aliens and even utter those words, a lot of people will, say you're nuts, or what are you talking about, and pointing fingers. But here you have a whole bunch of people that have all these experiences, and they came from all over the world. So it's almost hard to believe that there is nothing. It would also be almost ignorant, right, to think that we're the only race on the planet Earth, and there is nothing out there in this, in this wide, vast universe. But,
wow.
Yeah.
Renee Hansel asked a good question. She says, "Is there going to be a recording of this, Renee, to watch?"
Yeah, because of its nature. So it was the very, very first time. I did video record everything, so we will probably in the near future make this available. I'll probably edit all of this, and then at some point it will be available. But right now we're still figuring out with the speakers, because it's very sensitive, believe it or not. But apparently the government is also very protective of it, and I don't know if that's the right word, but they really don't want this knowledge to come out into the world. And I'm like, why not? I mean, it's something that is inevitable. It's gonna, right? So
I would think it's inevitable at some point, especially with these alignments. I'm thinking it's going to happen sooner.
I think so too. And but I was, by the way, the opening of the show, I'm a little bit shocked by the astrology, though. I'm like, everybody should really meditate. People, please sit down, relax, meditate, and so many things.
I think what it's going to do, Renee, is going to put us on a road. That's we'll look back at this time and we'll say, oh, wow, just like it did with COVID in 2020. Right. I feel it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a destination point that we're headed to.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be intense.
And we just experienced a glimpse of this because we almost had no show.
Okay, you guys would not even believe this. Renee, a minute before Renee goes, I'm going to go out and get some water. Like, okay, so
lots of water.
Somehow you got locked out.
Yes. So for those of you who are watching, of course, like, I'm still in the hotel. That's why I'm in this hollow room. I might sound a little strange, because I'm still in a ballroom in the hotel. But I said, okay, can I use this for an hour? Because the internet in my room was not strong enough to stream. So he said, okay, go in there. But many of you know that hotel rooms, they all have these keys, right? So if you walk out your door and you forget your key and the door locks behind you. So I just said to Kelly 1 minute before the show, I said, let me get a glass of water. I'm kind of thirsty. So I ran out, get a glass of water, and I hear behind me, click. And I'm like, oh.
But would you say that's one of those moments that, that you had actually almost prepared for it because you had your key? In other words, we had talked earlier about going with the flow.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about your life, because you have some amazing stories about going with the flow.
Yeah, it's, I think we as we grow older a little bit, we and if you have that interest into knowing yourself a little bit deeper, it's all about self-inquiry. and then a lot of beautiful things come up, right? You experience more of your soul and more of the deeper meaning of life. When you step out of the conventional way of living, like just having a life, a family, and work, and then you work for so many years, you retire, and then you die, and that's kind of your life, and that's it. But if you start to investigate a little bit more, like what is life, and what is, and where am I, and who am I, and you just start to ask deeper questions, then a lot over time starts to come out, and that's how I actually also got involved in all these teachings. I was in the beginning, like 15 years ago, when I still lived in the Netherlands, I had no interest in that whatsoever. I was a podiatrist, I was very busy, and I was just building a career, right? But I was going through a divorce at the time, very, very tough. And I knew that I wanted to do something else, but I had no clue what that exactly was. So then I started to ask these questions. I started to read books, and I started with books from Napoleon Hill. Have you read the book? Think and Grow Rich. You know,
Oh, yes.
Books. And then I started to go into a little bit more of the spiritual side, even though I had no idea what that was. And then,
had you met anybody that opened these doors for you, or somehow you found a book and you started reading, and then that kind of got you started?
Yeah, the interesting thing was my biological mother at that time, she lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And she was already involved with Deepak Chopra. She went to many seminars and did the teacher trainings. And so she saw me struggling with my divorce, right? And I think for many of you who are watching too, like sometimes you are in this phase of your life where you're just totally stuck. Yeah. Where you don't know, and it can be anything. It can be an accident. It can be a divorce, can be sickness, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it is like small disease, or it can be like something like cancer, or like really life-threatening.
Something gets your attention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Something gets your attention, and then you don't know where to go. And then in this case, the catalyst was my mom, and she said, my biological mother, and she said, like, I went to Deepak Chopra, why don't you go? And of course, my reaction was, no way, what do I do with Deepak and meditation and yoga? And that was so far out of my realm. Uh-huh. But then she pushed a little, like mothers are so smart, right?
Right.
They know.
We know. Yeah.
And what did she do? She said to me, like, what if I pay for it? And then I said,
that's something I would have said, something my mom would have said for sure. That's definitely a mother one.
Right,
because
I
trick.
live in the Netherlands,
yeah.
And she offered me a free trip to the US, where Deepak was at the time, at a convention. And it was in Sedona, Arizona. And maybe some of you know Sedona, Arizona. It's beautiful.
Yes, incredible.
Gorgeous there, and
it's such a spiritual area.
Yeah, it's a spiritual hub, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people go there to.
Also, a lot of aliens.
Also, a lot of aliens. I've never seen one, but I've been there many times. But yeah, at that time, it was a totally new experience for me. Yeah. I'd never been to the US, so I was like, all right.
Wow, it was really your first time here too.
Yeah, it was my first time in the US, and this is the interesting thing. Like, and this is. When she said, okay, I'll pay for it, for your convention and your flight and everything. And I looked up, like, where is Sedona, on the map. And I was like, whoa, that sounds in the middle of the desert. I had no clue. So then I widened the map, right? And I saw, like, oh, Vegas is like 5 hours away. I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do.
So you were struggling between your lower chakras and your higher chakras.
Yeah. Well, I think I was stuck in my lower only.
Totally.
I had not even an awareness of my higher chakras. That came much later.
Oh my God.
But then I just, I said, all right, I'll do it. And then, of course, as life has it, I roll up into that event, right? Drive up there, and as soon as I walk into these doors, I see that lady that was hosting for Deepak. And I was in the back of the room, and I was like, oh my God, that's the woman of my dreams, and I am going to marry her. My plane just landed like 5 hours ago. I drove straight to Sedona, came into the room. I saw her, and I was struck by lightning. And I had no clue. I'm like, well, now
Oh my gosh, I
I
never heard
knew
this story.
Yeah, I
Wow.
knew it. I knew it right there and then. And I
Wow.
had
What
no
year
clue.
was this?
This was in 2006.
Wow.
And I had no idea how or what. So I was doing that whole event, right? I was doing the yoga, I was doing the meditation, and I was doing and I listened to Deepak's story. And I don't know if anybody of you have listened to Deepak, or maybe for the first time, but
Oh,
I
he's
had
amazing.
no clue what that guy was talking about. I had no idea. I mean, you are an a-causal, non-local, quantum mechanical field of infinite possibilities. I'm like, what? What am I? Well, like I had no idea what the guy was talking about. And then with an Indian accent, right? I'm like, nah, you did. So, but I was only staring at now currently my wife, Amanda, is hosting. But it's an amazing story how all that came to be. So, so I went to the event and later on I stayed in touch with Amanda via email, and we started to build a relationship, and over email first for a long time. And also because at that time she was still in a relationship, and I was at the end of my divorce. So the universe was also not ready for us to come together, right? And all that wisdom, I had no clue of. I was just participating in it, but I was becoming a little bit more open to it, right? I was like, okay.
Wow. Had you stopped working as a medical doctor at that point?
Yeah, I was in the midst of selling my businesses, and then when I started to,
So you really took a leap of faith.
Yeah, totally, a total leap of faith. I had no idea what I was doing really, and the only thing I knew is I wanted to marry that woman, and I didn't even know her. I just saw her, and it worked out.
What a motivating force!
Yeah, and after a year, and you know what I started to do? I started to put up pictures on the wall with push pins, and I was like, okay, who is doing this work? But like I had heard something about intention setting, the power of intention. And I was like, who? And I heard about Eckhart Tolle, and I heard about Wayne Dyer, and I heard about these people, but I had no idea what they were teaching. So I started to look into that a little bit, right? These books, and then I'm like, well, if these guys, when they have so many followers, something of that must be true, right? So that's how I started to dabble into this, and I put up pictures, and I'm like, well, can't hurt. I still didn't believe in it.
Okay.
But over time, I started to see a change. I'm like, wow, things started to unfold slowly over time. And eventually I got in touch with Amanda, and we started to email back and forth. And the email.
Now, was she working for Deepak at the time?
Yeah, she was hosting all his events and organizing all his events. And then, we met a couple of times. And then eventually we fell in love. And she said, all right, let's get married. And I basically, in a long story short, I packed up all my stuff and I moved to the US and started a life here. And and then you're met with so many adversities, because I was a doctor and I wanted to be a doctor here, and then it turns out that all the licensing was not compatible, so I couldn't be a podiatrist. And so all these ups and downs, like all these years of studying, and I can't do it here, and now what? But what was the learning lesson there?
What was it for you?
If you believe in God or a higher power or your spirit or your soul, right? We all know that we can all connect to that. I mean, you can never not connect with it. So you have to trust that. And I believe that adversities that come on our path, on everybody's path, all the listeners too, everybody that's watching right now, go back, think about the adversities that you had in your life, and see what came out of it. Those are all little junction points, forks in the road, right?
Absolutely.
And it's an opportunity. And yes, you can hang on to all the negativity, but we learn also that doesn't serve you at all. It only creates more suffering. But then these forks in the road, they take you to places, and I started to trust that a little bit more. And then I started to, I became a volunteer for the Chopra Center, and I started to work behind the scenes at.
Now, was this out in La Costa, in that area, or where was this?
This was in San Diego.
In San Diego, okay.
Yeah, Deepak Chopra Center was in La Costa in Carlsbad, California.
Yeah.
and that's where we lived. And I started to help as a volunteer. And then a great story too is that one of the events that we had, the guy, the audiovisual guy at that time, he fell in love with a woman from Spain at that event. And right after the event, he said, "Adios, amigos, I'm moving to Spain." And then,
So you moved from Europe and he moved there. That's a funny
Right.
story.
but the problem was that 3 days later, there was another Chopra event. But so the Chopra Center had no time to hire a new person. There was just no time. So guess what they did?
You
They
did
asked
it.
me. They asked me. They said, "Oh," it was, of course, they were in totally panic-struck.
Had you ever done anything like that?
Nothing. Nothing. Never. I had no clue. The only thing I did is I at that time I had helped with set up a bunch of events, so I knew a little bit where what goes, and so. But they asked me. So of course, even Deepak Chopra, even the Chopra Center, look, they can get into distress because they asked me. So don't think that if you have 20
Right.
years of spiritual experience
Oh,
and you've meditated
doesn't
everywhere
matter.
else in the world, right?
That
Kelly, you
human
know it.
experience. I just experienced it myself. Yeah.
Totally, it doesn't matter. We all experience stress. So, but the thing is, then they told me, they asked me, and I said, "Oh, okay." So I started labeling every cable, and I said, "Well, this thing needs to go to that machine, and that goes there." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Because
So,
it's
yeah,
complicated.
it's very complicated, as your husband Don, who's probably watching, he knows everything about it.
He does.
Sound, lighting, and
Oh yeah.
videoing. It's a complicated system. It's an orchestra, and a whole orchestra that needs to come together,
Yeah.
needs to be balanced out. All the microphones, it's and because it feeds back,
yeah.
it does all sorts of things.
Oh
and
yeah. I live with somebody like
know,
that. Yeah, that's true.
so,
Mhm.
so then I started setting up that event, and I was, of course, so nervous.
Oh my gosh! But you had this trust that you knew it was gonna work out.
Yeah, I just said to myself, Eckhart Tolle, you really better come around here with your teachings, because I'm doing exactly what you're saying. Deepak, I'm surrendering to the universe, so you gotta help me here.
That's my favorite quote from Eckhart is why is my soul having this experience at this moment? And it's because it's the experience your soul is needing at this moment.
Right.
My favorite quote of his.
It's
and that's
amazing.
clearly, it was meant to put you on the road to begin this process.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everything that led up to it, you had to just go and do it. It's
Exactly.
fascinating. And that's sometimes it happens in life where we are the point person. We are put into this situation.
Right. Yeah. And then, and here's an interesting thing again, right? So what happened? And also for everybody that's listening, this is so important that I learned, and not because I say it, but because you will experience this as well. You have to trust. You have to. And if you take that leap of trust, and a very important thing is you have to be very clear with your intention. If your intention
Explain
is
that.
right?
Explain about intention.
Yeah, the intention is like if you just go about life and you just do all these random things, then you get random results, right? So, but if you're clear, if you think about like, okay, like what is it that I really, really want, and you slow down and you go into your heart, and the way that I tell people now is like your purpose in life, your dharma. It's actually not that hard to find. All you have to do is go here, right? Inside, not so much outside. Outside are the tools to make it happen. But the drive, the creativity, and the passion, and the joy, and the evolutionary leap of your soul, all comes from here, right?
Yes.
So you come here. So you first and foremost, you go here. And then you sit, and then you think about like what gives you joy, what makes your heart sing, like Allison and Katie and Roller and Susan and Diana. I see all of you, and Rain and Scott, and go inside yourself first. Sit in your stillness and think about what makes my heart sing, and then feel it, and that follow that, whatever that is. and then let nothing stop you. Because if you follow that, it's like the yellow brick road, right?
Mm-hmm.
The road will be paved right in front of you. Doesn't mean that it's always a smooth road. It will be quite bumpy because
Right.
of course you have all the things that come along the way, but the path will keep unfolding in front of you in ways you cannot imagine.
And
that's
sometimes and often it's much better than we could have imagined.
exactly. Because here's a small example, and I'm sure that many of you who are watching can and write it in the comments if you had a similar experience than what I am about to tell you. Okay, because Kelly and I, you want to read that, right? You want to?
Yeah, I'll watch it. Yes.
Yeah. So here I am. Remember, I had absolutely no idea what I'm doing, and here I am doing the audio visual for Deepak Chopra.
And you're a doctor.
So I was sweaty armpits. That was crazy. So I was putting these things together, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know. Oh, the guests come in. Oh my gosh, now. So I was so stressful. I'm like, it's really going to start. I'm like, where's the volume? Where is the and then one guest came in. Like all the people were going to their chairs, right? They had their bags and their goodies. Then there was one guy comes in, sees me, and he stops, walks back, and he says, "Do you need help?" And I said, like, no, I can't do that. You're a guest, you paid a lot of money to come here. I don't, no, please go. So he went away and, he sat down in the chair. And smart as he was, of course, he had done more of these courses and more of this work, the inner work. Like half an hour later, he saw me still struggling, of course. He came back and he said, if you want my help, I'm offering it. I'm here. I've seen Deepak many times. I'm happy to help you. And then I asked him, I said, do you have any experience with audio visual? He says, he looked at me, he nodded, and he says, a little. I said, that's good enough, come. So he sat next to me and he said, okay, now do this, and now do that. And
oh my God, what an angel that was sent.
Amazing. But Kelly, here's the kicker. So we do this event together, right? And I'm like, this dude really knows what he's doing, right? He taught me and he told me things. And then after the event, it went really well. So we packed up everything and I had a moment to have a beer with him. And I asked him, I said, well, now you really got to tell me who you are, right? And then he introduced himself and he said, well, I'm Dirk Schubert from Schubert Sound Systems in LA.
Oh my goodness gracious, wow.
That guy owns one of the largest audio-visual companies in the West Coast of the United States. He toured the world in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s.
Oh, he's huge.
Oh,
yeah, he's enormous.
Filled arenas.
Right now, Don, and I'm sure is like
Black Sabbath and Dire Straits and U2 and you name him, he did it. Filled arenas with light and sound. Yeah, he owned the. He was sitting next to me, and I asked him, "Do you know anything about sound?" Let's see how embarrassing and humiliating. It's perfect.
It really, you never know when and who your angels are going to be. You never know. Anything can surprise you at any moment, and you were open to receiving. You were like, no, you paid a lot of money. And and the fact that he came back, that's one of the greatest stories ever.
Right? So, and that's what I mean for everybody, that's watching. Like, think about a time, and that is about trust, right? It is about your intention. You go in with something with your great intention, and then you just trust and go.
Krista Constant says, this is currently happening with me. I was just asking for a sign, and Renee, you gave it to her. She said, thanks so much.
Yes, this is it. People, trust, go, trust, follow your gut. And I follow your heart even more. Follow your heart. And then it will all fall into place. Trust me. And
so here's a question for you. Nadine Van Voren says, ask yourself why you are suffering. What makes you unhappy? What can you change? What do you want to live? I hope and pray for you that you will find your answers and you will have the strength to change something. Right. And that's true, really. Why are you suffering?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I mean, everybody suffers. I mean, that is part of the the life experience, right? Nobody goes through this life like on
Oh, please, nobody. And this is a good one. This I love. This is from Lizette. She says, Renee, I was stagnant until I met James. Now, I happened to be on the call, Lizette, when I think you were behind the scenes. I think you were producing that call. I think it was in 2020 when we were doing a lot of, a lot of mediumship and we did something like that. And she said, I met James, who told me I'm an artist that channels energy. She said, I had no idea until I met Kelly, Jeff, and other Earth angels. So let me just say, Lizette, and to everybody else. So Jeff Adler is a wonderful, how would you explain this? A life coach.
Yeah, life coach.
So James and I were looking for a new producer, and it was Jeff Adler, Lizette, that recommended Renee.
Yeah.
So isn't that interesting? Because we had the intention of finding somebody wonderful, and then the door opened up that fast.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, the key is the trust part, and following your heart, and sometimes it's really difficult. I mean, we all know that. We all go through very, very difficult circumstances in life. So I'm not saying it's easy. But even in the most difficult times, it's it is a beautiful practice to not
just surrender. Would you say to surrender?
Yeah, it is a surrendering. It is ultimately the true joy and the true peace you find within yourself. Yeah, this is the dichotomy, you could say, or the problem that parents and schools and society does to us is they paint the picture the opposite way. They tell you from a very early age that if you work hard, you create a lot of money, then you will be happy, right?
Yeah.
But we know now that that's not true. The opposite.
Actually, I'll tell you something funny. When I was in high school, a high school counselor, guidance counselor, said to me, he looked at all my stuff and he goes, well, I said, do you see anything that I should do? He goes, you should just get married. Which I did not do very well. If I had listened to that, very funny. You should get married. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. Here it says, and Margaret says, I trusted 2 weeks ago. I will go to the B-52s, but she had no ticket. And I met a stranger who had a dinner with the band and was given 2 free tickets. He gave them to me, and I sat in the 3rd row at the B-52s in Boston 2 weeks ago. It was epic.
Okay, I love that song. Was it Rock Lobster? That's hilarious. Good for you, Anne Margaret.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And please write in the comments what a meaningful coincidence was for you in your life, or or synchronicity. Because if you write it in the comments, everybody else that's watching this will read your comment, and we can learn on here on this channel. That's why Kelly and James do this, right? To connect with your soul, to connect with, and to create this community here.
This is the best time astrologically to do any of this. The big ticket changes, or this is the time to make them. This is the time to go inward. That's why tomorrow with an eclipse, it's a great time to go in and really ask yourself, are you unhappy? What do you want to do? What would you like to do? What brings you joy? And joy is everything. I wake up passionate every day. Every day I have a passion about what I'm doing. Every single day. When I was in the hospital, that was tough because I kept getting kind of pulled down into that energy. Then I just surrendered to, rest and sleep. And that really helped.
Yeah, you did exactly the same thing. You went through a very difficult time the last couple of months, but you also trusted. You trusted that it was for your higher purpose. And so, I'm going to put you on the spot, Kelly.
Okay.
Here we go.
Ahead. Here we go.
I just thought of a question, and this is so fun. But so let me ask you this. What were 2 big takeaways from the surgery, or from the last couple of months? Let me put it that way.
Okay. So the 2 big takeaways are I wanted to make a huge change in my life. As much as I love the work I do, I'm cutting back. So I'm going to work 3 days a week. So my schedule is less, seeing individuals. and spending more time with my passion, which is writing and teaching. And so that was a big thing for me to slow down and really go, wait a minute, because, as you know, I was working, tremendous hours and not getting to where I wanted to be. And although I love working with people, I really want to do it on a little different platform. So I think that, and I love writing. So that was the first thing. I really knew, okay, wait a minute, Kelly, you only have so much time here. It really put me into it slowed me down. Just kind of said, I looked at, that was the first thing. And the second thing is I have always loved my life. And I'm really passionate about what I do and who I am. And I think it brought out for me this sense of understanding myself from a deeper soul place. Wow. And I think that was the big takeaway for me. Yeah. Just understand, it just did something to me, Renee. It just was a profound experience, if that makes sense.
And don't you think that is pretty much the most important thing to find out anyway, to who you are at the core of the being?
If this hadn't happened, I would still be, running. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the core, I think the most important thing you can do is to discover who you are at the core. Yeah.
Right. And what would you say? What if you, I know this is really hard, right, to give a description, but when you go to that soulful level, because this is what you do with all the readings too, right? You just, and like James says too, the physical is only a very small part of who you really are, right? So, but what would you say? What would you say who we are in essence?
Who we are in essence?
Yeah, what we are.
We're souls that are here to experience joy and love and passion and kindness. And those are the things that I believe that we've come to be here and to learn here on this in this dimension.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily easy because, as you said, as you pointed out, when you're born, a lot of labels are slapped on you from but then I have to use a different lens and say that on the other side, we choose our parents. And in fact, in your case, you chose 4 parents. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because you were adopted.
Yeah.
So then you'd have to go back and say, okay, what did I learn from this? What did I learn from that? I think also that we're in a constant state of learning here. And I don't care who you are spiritually. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the next lesson. There's going to be another lesson. There's going to be another lesson. This school is designed with lessons. So as soon as you can sit back and, and pretty much take it all in, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, I think that too, Kelly. I 100% agree with you. I think, sometimes it seems like that from the moment we're born, when you first come into this world, you have or most of us have no idea of their own existence, right?
Right, so true.
Right, but then as you grow older, as a toddler, and you go to school, and then more and more you create an identity, right? An identity. So, but that identity is solely based on influences from outside, right? You have all these influences to your 5 senses. And that over time creates that identity that is, by the way, constantly changing.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Constantly changing.
Constantly changing. Yeah. So there's nothing fixed in that. But so is your biology. So are your cells. So are everything, in essence, everything about you is constantly changing.
Right.
So if you think about that and just pause for a minute, then you will come to the conclusion that who you are in essence cannot be this body and mind alone, because it's constantly changing. There's nothing fixed or solid in it. So here is what I mean. It becomes very interesting. Sometimes this is referred as self-inquiry, right? You just
yes.
Wow, the body is just a fleeting. It's subject to change at all times. So who am I in the midst of this change?
Right.
That has to be the soul. That has to transcend the physical.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very good. Absolutely.
So then what in a way, what we can do, if you can come to a point, what for most of us happens is that we get stuck in our story. Yeah? We get stuck in a story. Oh, me. We identify with me. I'm sorry, and I have this, and I've undergone that, and so we hammer that into ourselves as. But if you look, when you relax a little, relax and breathe, take a step back and breathe and just investigate, and then you see that it's not so. I mean, it really isn't. Your life is just an unfolding, a constant unfolding actually in an eternal now, but I won't go into that too much because the future and the past is also manufactured, right? Nobody has ever been able to go to the future. Nobody has been able to go back to the past. So your experience always happens in an eternal now. So this becomes a miraculous discovery. And
very good. Yes.
With that discovery, you slowly but surely start to less attach yourself to the worldly things and more trusting your soul, that which is not subject to change. Yeah, your essence, your unconditional love, the essence of who you are. And when you trust and rest that more and more, then that can and will become your new identity from which you live. So not the character so much it's undergoing all these things, but more the eye in the storm. Yeah?
That's beautiful.
The eye is the stillness, is your soul. It has nothing to do, the body is the storm, everything that is subject to change and fly, all the debris is flying everywhere.
Right.
And that's life, that's what life is. It's debris that's flying everywhere. Experiences come and go, it's a crazy world out there. But you, in essence, you are always fine. The essence of you is always fine. But that's the discovery. But you have to be willing to take that leap and to investigate and do it over and over again. And that will automatically and effortlessly become your truth, your reality. And that's the soulful level.
and everybody can do that. Everybody can do that.
Exactly, Kelly. Mm-hmm. There is no person in this world that can do this.
Right.
Because of the essence, we're all one.
Exactly.
It is, it's fabulous.
Wow. Well, Renee, this has been a fascinating show. I'm so glad that you were on tonight. Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you for such wonderful comments. Oh my gosh. Yes. Everybody's saying thank you, Renee, for sharing, and it's ending too soon, and fantastic show. And you have to have him back, Kathleen. Yeah, you're right.
Maybe, who knows, we'll do a part 2 of this.
We'll do part 2. We'll dive deeper. Oh my gosh. And everybody joins James and me next week, and Renee. And we're having our Halloween show. So we'll be telling. It's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about ghost stories. I've got a couple that I've never shared before, which would be really good. And James has some really good ones. And, it's going to be a wonderful show. So join us next week. Have a great week. But remember, pay a lot of attention this week. Watch it. This is intense energies. Okay? Take care, everybody. And thank you, Renee. Really, that was great. Thanks, Renee, so much.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kelly White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right.